She was stopped in public by the very people meant to protect her. No warning, no explanation, just hands, laughter, and a line crossed that could never be undone. In seconds, dignity turned into humiliation, and silence became survival. Bystanders froze. Authority stood unchecked. What began as a routine moment spiraled into something far darker, exposing how easily power can be abused when no one is watching. And before this story goes any further, take a second to really sit with that, because stories like this don't spread unless people choose to listen. If moments like these matter to you, stay with me. But one detail remained hidden. Someone connected to her, trained for moments like this, was about to change everything. When justice fails in an instant, who has the power to take control back? Before that day, her life was quiet in ways most people never notice. She worked long hours, kept to herself, and carried the weight of responsibility without complaint. Every morning followed the same rhythm: work, errands, and the short walk that helped her clear her head. She believed in rules, in keeping her head down, and in not giving anyone a reason to look twice at her. It was how she survived in a world that often felt ready to misunderstand her. She had learned early that being a black woman meant being watched differently. Small mistakes felt bigger. Simple actions felt questioned. Still, she chose dignity over anger, patience over confrontation. She trusted that if she did everything right, nothing could go wrong. That belief had carried her this far. What few people knew was how close she was to her family, especially her older brother. He had left home years earlier, choosing a life built on discipline and sacrifice. Though distance separated them, his presence was always felt, through quiet check-ins, unspoken promises of protection, and a bond forged long before either of them understood the world they were growing into. If you've ever believed doing everything right would keep you safe, you'll understand why what happens next cuts so deep. On that day, nothing felt unusual at first. The air was heavy, the street familiar, and the moment ordinary. But ordinary moments are often when everything breaks. A patrol car slowed. Eyes lingered longer than they should have. Authority arrived without invitation, carrying assumptions instead of questions. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to be forced into a situation no one prepares for. And far away, someone trained to respond under pressure was unknowingly being pulled into the same moment, one that would test the meaning of power, control, and justice itself. The patrol car stopped closer than necessary, its presence heavy and intentional. She felt it before she understood it, the shift in air, the sudden awareness of being seen. What followed moved quickly, yet each second stretched painfully long. Authority surrounded her without explanation, turning a public space into a trap. She tried to remain calm, reminding herself to breathe, to stay still, and to give them nothing they could twist against her. But calm did not protect her. Compliance did not soften what was coming. Hands guided her movements without care. Eyes scanned her not for safety but for control. Every action felt exaggerated, deliberate, and meant to remind her who held power in that moment. People nearby noticed, then looked away. Fear does that. It teaches silence. She felt exposed, not just physically but emotionally, stripped of dignity in front of strangers who chose comfort over courage. If this is making you uncomfortable, it should. Stories like this aren't meant to be easy, but they are meant to be seen. Keep watching. The weight of judgment pressed down harder than the hands restraining her. Her thoughts raced, searching for logic in a situation driven by assumption. She replayed every step she had taken that day, every rule she had followed, and every reason this should not be happening. None of it mattered. The narrative had already been written for her, shaped by skin color and silence. Time blurred as authority escalated without cause, turning restraint into humiliation. Each passing moment felt like proof that no one was coming to stop it. Inside, fear gave way to something deeper, a sharp, quiet anger born from helplessness. She understood then how quickly control can be taken and how easily the line between law and abuse can disappear. She wondered how many others had stood where she stood, unheard, unseen, their stories swallowed by procedure and paperwork. The realization settled heavily. This was bigger than her. Unbeknownst to those surrounding her, a chain reaction had already begun. Far away, a message traveled faster than sirens ever could. It reached someone who had spent years training for chaos, for moments when hesitation costs lives. Someone who understood authority, not as privilege, but as responsibility. Someone who knew how power moves and how it can be stopped. Back at the scene, tension tightened like a wire pulled too far. The crowd grew, phones lifted, whispers spread, yet no one intervened. The imbalance was unmistakable. Authority leaned in harder, confident in uniforms and numbers, unaware that the situation was slipping beyond their control. Each action pushed closer to a breaking point, one that could not be undone. As pressure mounted, the atmosphere shifted again, subtle, almost invisible. What felt like the height of unchecked power was, in truth, the moment before reversal. The kind of moment history turns on, when those who believe themselves untouchable are about to learn a different lesson. And just beyond the edge of that moment, consequences were already moving toward them, faster than anyone realized. The moment reached its breaking point when control turned into cruelty. The air felt thick, every breath heavy with fear and disbelief. Her body trembled, not from resistance, but from the realization that nothing she did would stop what was happening. Power had fully tipped to one side, and those wearing authority felt untouchable. The crowd watched, frozen between outrage and fear, as if witnessing something they would later struggle to explain to themselves. Then everything shifted. It wasn't loud at first. No dramatic announcement. Just a sudden presence that changed the rhythm of the scene. A man stepped forward with calm that didn't belong to chaos. His posture was different. His awareness is sharper. Years of discipline showed in the way he moved and the way he read the situation in seconds. He saw his sister before anyone saw him, not as a case, not as a problem, but as family in danger. What happened next unfolded faster than thought. Authority met precision. Confidence met control. In a blink, the balance of power reversed, not through rage, but through mastery. Training overcame arrogance. Composure dismantled aggression. Those who moments earlier felt dominant now realized they had misjudged the situation completely. The crowd gasped as the impossible became real. The uniforms no longer commanded the moment. Someone else did, someone who understood rules, force, and consequence at a level far beyond intimidation. There was no chaos in his actions, only clarity. No hatred, only purpose. It was the kind of intervention that exposes the difference between abusing power and understanding it. For the first time since it began, the world seemed to pause. Phones stopped shaking. Whispers fell silent. Eyes widened as reality settled in. This was no longer a story that could be buried or ignored. Too many people had seen it. Too many cameras were recording. Too much truth was standing in plain sight. Her fear slowly gave way to something unfamiliar, relief. Not because the pain was gone, but because she was no longer alone. The moment that began with humiliation had transformed into one of reckoning. And as the dust settled, one question lingered heavily in the air. What happens when those who abuse power are finally forced to face someone who cannot be intimidated? The scene did not end with cheers or celebration. It ended with silence, the kind that settles when reality sinks in. Authority retreated, not defeated by force, but exposed by it. What had unfolded could not be rewritten or ignored. Cameras captured more than actions. They captured truth. The crowd dispersed slowly, carrying with them an image they would not forget. For some, it was discomfort. For others, awakening. She stood there afterward, shaken but standing. The weight of what had been taken from her could not be returned in that moment. Her sense of safety, her trust, her belief that dignity is guaranteed. But something else remained intact. Her humanity had been seen. Her pain had not been erased. And for once, the story did not end with her suffering in silence. Her brother stayed close, not as a hero, but as proof. Proof that abuse of power is not strength. Proof that discipline and accountability matter. Proof that protection should never depend on who you know, but too often it does. That truth lingered long after the uniforms disappeared. In the days that followed, the footage spread. Conversations sparked. Some denied it. Some justified it. Others finally recognized a pattern they had been taught not to see. For her, life continued, but changed. Ordinary moments now carried echoes of that day. A slowing car. A lingering stare. The quiet question of whether it could happen again. This was never just her story. It was a reflection of countless moments that never make headlines, never go viral, and never end with intervention. Moments when no trained brother arrives. Moments where power goes unchecked. Moments where silence wins. The impact of that day reached beyond one street, one family, and one incident. It challenged the idea that injustice is rare, accidental, or exaggerated. It forced a simple, uncomfortable truth into the open. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it so others can see what too often gets ignored. Speak in the comments, because silence is what allows this to repeat. And if you want more stories that expose truth instead of hiding it, stay connected. If dignity can be taken so easily, and justice arrives only by chance, what does that say about the world we accept? And more importantly, what are we willing to do to change it?